I was online recently and I came across a video of one of the actors that I used to watch very heavily as far as his films when I was younger, Corey Feldman, and I noticed he's talking about um, Hollywood and pedophilia, how it's very widespread in Hollywood. Well, sadly, I've just recently realized that it's not just in Hollywood, which is something that I kind of always knew about. It's also been happening here in my shower room through this very window. For example, I recently found that people were coming in here, mothers were lured to come in here with gifts and free accessories and things. They would bring their children in here and they would undress them, sometimes children as young as infants, by changing their diapers, others a little bit older, and they would bring them in here while people who enjoyed seeing children in the nude would be watching through the cameras that were mounted in the trees that was outside of my window, while they would also look at various other things that took place here, such as the women that would come in here and strip or perform acts of sex, or myself even when I was using the bathroom, taking a shower, etc. And I just never imagined anything like this could ever happen to me as a result of going to a school called Full Sail University. And I never ever imagined someone would install cameras outside of my trees, looking through my windows, and to realize that my mother actually authorized this, receiving roughly a sum of over $500,000, explains a lot. Because in 2015, I managed to call a detective, or actually I emailed a detective, as I'm not really allowed to use the phone. Whenever I use the phone calls are not returned, and people go out of their way to actually never have to call me back, which was really strange to me. I couldn't understand it, but apparently with a phone, there's always a record of a conversation, so some people may not want that. Anyhow, I emailed the detective, and what happened shortly after this was just the most amazing thing. For example, I got thrown in jail. I've never known an incident where you or myself, for example, contacted a member of police force, told them about crime taking place, and then as a result was locked up. But it didn't stop there. I lost my air conditioning. It seemed to have gone out the moment I came home from jail. So now my air conditioning is gone. And it got worse and worse. For example, just a few short days later, I'm at the park with my dog, and I noticed a burning sensation inside of my left shoe. So, as a natural reaction, I lifted up my leg and tried to sort of hobble to a resting position, something that I've probably done over 1,000 times in my lifetime. When maybe an insect or something, maybe a thorn might have poked itself in my foot, being barefoot. But on this particular day, it was inside of my shoe, and having this crown in my mouth, it's almost as if someone has a joystick that controls me. Okay, left here, right here, squat, turn around. So they led me up to this hill. Then this thing was activated in my shoe, whatever it was, that it started to burn my foot. And then once I lifted my leg, started to hobble, apparently it was just enough to shift all the weight to my right leg. And as a result, the next day, I couldn't even get out of bed. For the next 6 weeks, I couldn't even take a walk. My dog kept looking at me with his sad eyes, like, why won't you take me for a walk? And now it's been over 2.5 years, and I'm now just finally starting to be able to run again. As I was not even able to bend my knee back there in 2015 when it first happened. One of the most devastating things I've ever felt. I mean, I've had, sports injuries, sports-related injuries, but nothing like that. It's like water would just constantly run down my eyes when I was in bed at night, and I couldn't stop. It just wouldn't go away. Of course, I'm not allowed to see doctors because I've been put on this island by Michelle Obama, so, this is great. And then after that, I'm flossing my teeth, and my teeth start to chip and fall off. And none of that made any sense. And now I guess I kind of understand why, after having seen the Conspiracy of Silence, a movie that also dealt with the discovery of pedophilia and things like that.
As Gary Caradori and Karen Ormiston sought out new witnesses on the streets of Omaha, they found themselves under constant threat.
Gary was threatened several times. His vehicles were tampered with. I would think whoever tampered with them, it was a scare tactic because it was so obvious that they were being tampered with.
Gary there was one piece of evidence I know he got that he even said he got one step ahead of him this time. He told us about this book. It was like addresses, telephone numbers, names. He said if they knew he had it, they'd kill him.
On July the 11th, 1990, Gary Caradori and his 8-year-old son, AJ, were flying home from Chicago. They had watched the All-Stars baseball game, and Caradori had been pursuing new leads.
Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board are in Harold Cameron's cornfield trying to determine what caused this private plane to crash, killing its 2 occupants.
The bodies of Gary Caradori and 8-year-old AJ were found in the wreckage.
National Transportation Safety Board investigators say wreckage from the crash is apparently strewn over a 3/4 to 1 mile long stretch in this field.
The fact that the wreckage is scattered over a large area certainly demonstrates that it did break up in flight. The exact mechanism of breakup yet is still unknown.
The federal investigation was never able to discover what tore the plane apart.
There are things missing from the plane. His briefcase is missing. Again, we'll never know what all was missing because I don't know what he had with him. I don't know what he did in Chicago. He may have had information he was coming back with.
Within 24 hours of the tragedy, FBI agents impounded all records of the investigation.
As far as my knee incident goes, it was a lot like the Nancy Kerrigan and the Tanya Harding story. One difference, major difference. I never had anyone attack me physically. In other words, nobody ever laid a finger on me. It's amazing the things that are out there in the military arsenal when they want to go after someone, when they're sent after someone. When you got neighbors such as the Bush family and the Obamas and the Bidens and the Cheney, I guess anything can happen. In case you wonder why my shower is so destroyed, it's because of this crown that's been placed in my mouth. At first I thought, I was the one that was smashing all of these bits and pieces of marble that you see before you. But as it would turn out, it wasn't in fact me who did these things. It's through this crown that's been placed in my mouth that people tell me what they want in order to take revenge. For example, break this or break that. There's an attempt basically to get back at, me and the homeowner, obviously, that they're mad at. And obviously this will hopefully, eliminate fingerprints and what have you. So anytime they need me to, sort of cover up their path, they tell me, hey, you're right on the wall to make me look like a crazy guy. And then the police comes in, they see that, and then they tell me, hey, now go buy primer and put it over the walls and things like that. This is basically Carter's way of taking revenge for being small-minded. And this is what I've been dealing with ever since this thing got put in my mouth, ever since I got out of Full Sail University. I never thought going to a school that was just an absolute ridiculously horrible school, didn't teach me anything, would result into the Carter family having taken over my life and having become a slave. But that's what Full Sail University did for me. Thanks to guys like Gary Jones, Ron Cook, Suzanne Bain, who tied me up to this, and my former brother-in-law, John Patrick Connolly. I mean, these people are clearly some of the worst people on earth. In this school and I have been done since 2009, when I left the state of Florida for good. And to realize that when I came home, there were cameras placed in my trees zooming in, and pedophiles were looking in, heterosexual, homosexual men were looking in. It's just unbelievable to me. Something that I never ever thought would happen as a result of going to a school. I mean, I could have understood maybe if, I had met someone in a dark alley and they just decided to follow me home and whatnot, but in a school setting, and that's just not really why people go to school. Which goes to show the reason as to why I thought this place was, Full Sail University, was an absolute joke. As their owner, Gary Jones, apparently he's been looking in here. He's been aiding and providing footage, these types of things to his investors and so on. And that's just someone who doesn't belong to any form of academic institution, or shouldn't own an academic institution. That person clearly belongs behind bars. Hi everybody. Today I want to talk about how some of these incidents here may have actually started. As I think there's some people who probably don't really know all of the facts yet. So in my attempt to help people that this type of thing never happens again, I'll continue to post these short videos, and hopefully this will help some. In 2008, I opened my notebook, my computer, like any other Sunday afternoon morning. I think it was in January 2008, and I saw this ad on MSN. And it was an ad for schools that offered entertainment business programs. And it said one of the reasons, the entertainment companies are looking at these places are because they offer master programs. And NYU was one, and Full Sail was another. I'd never ever heard of Full Sail until that January morning. So I figured, okay, Full Sail doesn't require a form of testing to get inside of their master's program like NYU did. So I figured it'd be easy. It's in Florida. I like Florida. I'll just go to this school. Now, what happened was I was reading a book at the time, this one, to sort of reconnect with my own past, because my mother often claims to know a great deal about history, as did my grandfather from my mother's side of the family, while both of them I found knew nothing, and my father also knew very little. He knew more than both of those two, but again, not as much or as in depth as this book. When I finished the book, I left it on my kitchen counter and told my mom, hey, listen, I know you're probably going to be coming over, so hey, maybe you'd like to read this book, thinking I was doing her a favor. In this book, the reason I bring this up, it's important, because in this book, the author, not being a Republican or a Democrat, the author is actually British, so he's really just writing this from a British point of view, as British had very heavy interests out in the region at the time. So he's writing this from his own point of view, based on very detailed facts and data. A great account. And I thought, well, Jimmy Carter was always this human-loving, peace-loving kind of individual, but that's really not true, as I found out. In fact, as a president, as nation's 39th president, he was pretty shrewd in his dealings. He may be a human rights character or human rights activist now, but he wasn't always that kind during his time in power. In fact, there's a quote in there that he tells his staff, listen, I do not want the Shah of Iran coming over here and then be photographed playing tennis because that'll look bad for me in international affairs. And there are other instances where the author, Mr. Shawcross, is talking about men like Henry Kissinger, former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger of the Nixon administration, pleading to the officials of the Carter era, saying, "Listen, this guy is an ally. We need to let him in. It's not right for him to, be jumping from one country to the next, and so on. Almost like a homeless individual, a nomadic homeless individual." And the Carter administration just continued to refuse, saying he didn't want him here, until eventually he had to give in and let him come here and seek treatment for cancer. Why is all of this important? Well, I left this book on my counter for my mother to read, as I stated earlier. However, not only she didn't read this book, she let in the worst person she possibly could have let into this house, who could have seen this book, and that was Jimmy Carter's family. Because as the book also paints a picture of Jimmy Carter during his earlier years, it seemed that Carter and Rosalind weren't exactly very fond of the Shah due to his extreme wealth. Now, for whatever reason, maybe he was robbing the country, whatnot, but they just didn't seem to like his lifestyle, his womanizing ways, and so forth. So my mother let in basically the worst person she could have let in by letting Amy Carter in here. And now I can't get rid of her. As a result, I've got vandalism, my pets being kidnapped out of clinics, and so forth. And hopefully this will help. Guess he don't like you. Come on. Come on. Take your ball.
Leaving that rake in the yard for me to tramp on, I should sue you over that damn rake.
Get your ball. Get your ball. Get your ball. It's okay. Get your ball. I fired you in 06, remember that?
Well, I don't work for you. Your father. You don't even own this house.
I live here, not you.
That doesn't matter. You're a favorite.
You might want to look that up before you start dishing out vocabulary that's too over your comprehension level, Stuker. You remember, you dropped out of college because you couldn't hack it. You cheated, remember, buddy? Yeah. Yeah, you just make sure your wife doesn't look in my windows. I appreciate that. And stop killing my plants. Yeah, I know. Free weed, free weed,
You're killing
free weed. I am so gonna sue you, you dumb redneck. You are a dumb redneck. And well, you'll figure it out. See you, redneck. See you, redneck. Come on, Willie. Come on. Get your ball.